Okay, so um, we'll look at VLOOKUP. So basically we'll be using Excel. Then we'll look at the VLOOKUP function. So this was part of the computer basics for the ICT Society roadmap in February, and this also be part of the fraud detection and technologies, which is cybersecurity wise 339 for 3 years. So let's understand what this particular VLOOKUP with the introduction. So we are saying a VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. Okay, so this is just a short for vertical lookup, VLOOKUP. So basically it's a function in Excel and Google Sheets that allows you to search for a value in a vertical column and returns a corresponding value from another column in the same row. Okay, so basically what you're trying to do is that this is just a function which can help us to search for a particular entry in a cell in Excel. Okay, yeah, so looking at this first example we have, so we can see we have Kapasa Makasa University and the student portal. So here we will try to assume as if we have a system which have usernames such as student numbers and login attempts. So each and every student attempted to log in these particular times, okay? And here we have the risk levels showing to be low, medium, high, and critical. And the action which can be taken for the administrator either to allow access, suspend, or block. Okay, so imagine you're working with a system which has a huge data set. It's more like a database which has all those particular credentials for the students at Kapasa Makasa University. Now we want to flag any suspicious user login attempt because some accounts might be compromised. Someone can try to access your system through a legitimate user, or maybe they're using bots to actually brute force the login system. So you need to set up a limit for a particular login with these particular risk levels. Okay, so here the system is telling us that we can search a student by name or by student identification number. Now after we search for a student, we are going to see the results for the number of login attempts, the risk level, action taken, and administrative action which can be done by that particular student. So in this case, we have three options. We can either allow the student to proceed with the login session, or we can suspend, or we can block. So think of this as the maybe an intrusion detection system. Then later on, an administrator takes action to either allow, suspend, or block that particular traffic session. So without wasting much of our time, let's understand what VLOOKUP is all about to search particular entries. So in this particular case, since we are indicating that this cell, which is C12, will be used for us to search for particular student numbers. So we are not going to insert our formula in here, but we are going to target this particular value as our search point, which is C12. So in this case, we can target the number of login attempts. So I'll click on this cell, which is D15. Then inside the formula bar, I'll put an equal sign for each and every function or formula starts with an equal sign in Excel. So since we are looking at VLOOKUP, I'll say VLOOKUP tab to autocomplete on my keyboard. So you can see for VLOOKUP, we need to look up for a value. Okay, lookup value. So the lookup value simply means this particular values you are trying to search for. In this case, we are trying to search for these particular student numbers. So if we want to target a particular student number, I can simply add it as my lookup value. Now in this case, we want the administrator to search for that particular student number on this cell, which is C, then 12. So our lookup value will target C12, okay? So I'll say C12, which is this cell. Why? Because this is where each and every entry of the student identification number is being entered. Okay, so you can see we need to put a comma after VLOOKUP, so I'll say comma. Then we have what we call the table array. So the table array is actually your target, which table is containing particular data set you are targeting. So in this case, you can see that from A7 all the way, here there is actually F, all the way to F10. This is the data set we're having, okay? So here I'll put a range to say B7, which is the start, it's ending here, okay? So I'll say 2. So actually in ratio we say 2, okay? If it's a ratio, we say 2 F7 or F10, by the way, because here is the maximum is 10. So from 7 to 10. So we're starting at C12 all the way to, or B7 all the way to F10. So we can see that everything here has been targeted. Oh, by the way, we also need to include this part. So we're starting at S7 all the way to F10. So here is supposed to be A, because we are targeting all this data set. Okay, this is our interest, area of interest. So after we've talked about our data array, which is containing all the data sets we want, we'll put a comma. Okay, now we have what we call the column index number. So in this case, since we are targeting at the student identification number, okay, but if you can see, we are saying number of login attempts, and this is where we are inserting our formula. So it means our target value is number of login attempts, which is this number of login attempts, okay? So you can see that at exactly cell B or column B here, we're having login attempts, okay? So if we are counting columns, this is column 1, this is column 2. So I'll say 2, okay? Target, okay, our interest is in column 2, which is actually login attempts, as we can see. Then I'll put a comma. Here you can see there's a comma. Put a comma. And after we put a comma, we can see that we can either go with true, which is an approximate match, or we can go with false, which is the exact match. So in this case, we want to search for the exact student number. So we are going to use for the false, okay, false value, which is going to give us an exact match. Then I'll close the formula. It means we are done. So with this, we are simply saying that here we'll be able to insert here in C12, to insert this particular student number from this list. Then with this range, we are targeting the data set from A7 all the way to F10. Okay, so this is our target, all this highlighted thing. Then we are targeting column 2, which is B, which is 1, 2. So B for the login attempts, which is actually number of login attempts we are inserting our formula. Then we can see we have false. So false, we are trying to get an exact match for the things we search in here. So if we search for this student number 2023 1392, we are going to get an exact match of the number of login attempts, which is 1. So here I'm going to press enter. We can see we have this error message, which indicates that nothing of our interest has been found. Now this is just okay, because we haven't searched for any particular entry. So you can see the first student number we have is 2023 1392. So once I press enter, we can see that the system is able to search for the number of login attempts, which is 1. So it's 1 because we can see that this student number is actually having 1. So it's the exact match we are expecting because of that false statement we saw. Okay, so we can see that VLOOKUP actually helps us to search for particular things. Okay, so we're going to delete it. Now it's used in actually fraud detection and technologies. So let me just copy the formula by saying Control A, then Control C of this particular thing. So here we can see now we have risk level. So I'm going to paste the formula inside this formula bar. Then now the risk levels, we can see the risk level is at column D, which is 4. If we count 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to change this thing to 4. Okay, So the moment I press enter, you can see that risk level is now saying low, because actually this guy has a login attempt of 1 and a risk level which is low. Now we come to the action taken. So again, I'm going to paste this particular formula. Then the action taken starts at column 5, which is E, action. Okay. So here we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here I'll say 5. Okay. So the moment I press enter, we can see that actually the action taken is saying allow access. So here now we can try to search for another student. Let me say we try this guy, which is 2022 001782. So once I press enter, we can see that now the number of login attempts are 5, risk level is critical, action taken is block, then administrative action taken, it's up to the administrator to do these particular 3 options we have. We can either allow, and we can suspend, or we can block. So coming back to flow detection and technologies, we can see that a VLOOKUP helps us to search for particular data sets in a huge data set and make informed decision. So in this case, we can see that this particular student ID had 5 multiple login attempts. So if a system flags this as critical, we are going to take action by saying block. So with these actions you are given, we can see that we need to block this particular student. Okay, so once you click on that action, which is block, you can see now it's saying Kapasa Makasa University login blocked. Your account is blocked. Please contact support. So it means at this particular point we've made a decision to actually block that particular student. So there are some cases whereby maybe you want to, okay, the system flagged this particular user, maybe to say uh, blocked. Now you can take action either to allow if you realize that actually the level was not critical. Now let's just give these remaining examples so that we proceed. So we have this student number, which is 2024 101. So if I search for that, we can see that the number of attempts, login attempts 3, risk level medium, action taken, allow access. So the administrative action can to say allow. So here we can try to allow this particular access of the student, and it will say Kapasa Makasa University login allowed. Then your account is active and you can log in. So with that statement, the student can proceed to log in. Okay, now there's another scenario here where we have this student 2025 44 61. So if I search for this student, if I search for this particular student, here we can see the number of login attempts are 4, risk level high, action taken suspend. So the administrative action would actually be suspend. So for the account which is actually suspended, over time it can actually be reactivated, okay, even the blocked one. But for the blocked one, since it's critical, we don't want to maybe restore that particular account. So this particular system gives us a clue on how VLOOKUP actually works. So to continue with this particular handout we have, let me just read it out. So we can see here we are saying it is used to look up and retrieve data from a specific column in a table based on matching value in the first column. So we can see that everything we were doing here, we were just targeting the columns. So if it was for risk level, we are targeting column 4, which is D, just the column itself, okay, for us to get that exact match. But at first we included the entire data set with that range. So that's the meaning. So the VLOOKUP function can be useful too in fraud detection and technologies. So here are the reasons. So number 1, flagging suspicious patterns in account activity. So with that example, you can see that we are able to see suspicious patterns from those login attempts, and we made informed decisions. So another reason can be monitoring unusual access to sensitive data. So if you see that your system maybe has sensitive data in some accounts are old accounts, and maybe someone retired on a particular maybe department, but they still have access to those sensitive data, you can take action by simply searching for their ID and removing them using this particular VLOOKUP. Okay, so again we are verifying user identification against known data. So most of the times in information systems, for example for students, we can just search for the student number as you have seen in that particular example, and all the results will reflect maybe for that particular student. So it's more like we are trying to verify the identification of that particular student. So the last point we have is analyzing behavior trends. So we can see that with VLOOKUP, once we start searching for those data in the cells, we can see that okay, this particular change in pattern, which is a trend for a particular data set, is actually going or moving at this rate or percentage. So we can see maybe here from this particular example we have, by searching for each and every user, we can see that there's a trend or a pattern which is changing by the number of login attempts, and with that you can make informed decisions. Okay, so that's how we can analyze behavioral trends. So here we can see now we are looking at the syntax of a VLOOKUP. So already the syntax was discussed when I was doing the demo, so everything here was explained. So we are going to skip this one. Now we have common uses of VLOOKUP. So as you can see, we have an exact match, which was the first, the one we used in our example, and approximate match, which is true. Okay, so for the exact match, we are trying to look for the exact match, and if it doesn't find one, it returns an error, typically hashtag n/a. So here to demonstrate, though we saw it in the previous example, if I remove this particular entry and say enter, you can see everything will be tagged as hashtag n/a, meaning it's an error, nothing has been found, because we've implemented our VLOOKUP to say that once you search for something here to give you the results. For example, if we search for 2023-1392, we're going to see the results. Okay, but the moment we search for something which is not available, such as 100, you see that it will say n hashtag n/a. Okay, so that's the meaning there. Then this is the syntax for the first, which I believe we've explained. Now in this case, they added quotations and malicious. So in this case, it's more like they are searching for a particular thing which is malicious in the system. So in that case, we gave the administrator permission to search for a particular student number, and the results will be automatically changing. But in a case whereby you use quotations, because this is a word, it's not a number, no wonder you're using quotations, and maybe you just search for a thing which is malicious, it will just look for the thing which is malicious, okay, which is exact match for malicious. So that's the meaning. So this formula looks for the exact match of the malicious in the first column of the range, which is this, and returns a value from the second column, which is this. This malicious isn't found exactly, it returns an error, which we discussed as this. Okay, so the bottom line is that we're trying to find an exact match using the false statement in VLOOKUP. Now for the true statement, it looks for the closest match less than or equal to the lookup value, then which is useful for finding ranges or thresholds. So there are some systems whereby maybe to show you the number of days your account was compromised, maybe in a month it was from day 0 up to 30, maybe day 1 up to day 14. So because of those range, you cannot use a false, which is an exact match, but you're going to use a true, which is an approximate match, which will help you to find for the closest match or something which is equal or less than that value. So here we have an example which says VLOOKUP. So we are looking for a value which is equal to 75 or close to 75 in this data set, which is more like a range, and it's in column 2, and the value is true for approximate match. So in this case, VLOOKUP looks for the closest value less than or equal to 75 in the first column, as I've discussed. Okay. So these are the main common uses of a VLOOKUP. Now we have limitations of a VLOOKUP. So one of the limitations is that right to left lookup. So what do we mean by this? So you can see in our system, if we search for a student number such as 2023 1392, yes, we are getting the results. But how are we getting these results? It's actually starting on the left side, going to the right side for us to check for each particular entry or result for these things. So how is it so? So if I put a case here, we can see that our range is in ascending order. Okay, we are starting at A going to F. It means if we are starting at A going to F, for us to reach F, we first visit B, C, D, E, and F. So once we search this data set in this way, which is coming from the left side to the right side, it means that's the limitation. Okay, what if the data is on this opposite side? So it won't look for that data because we haven't properly validated our search. So this is what we mean by left to right lookup. So lookup can only look up values in columns to the right of the lookup column. It cannot search for a value to the left of the lookup column. Okay, so data range limitation. So what do we mean by data range limitation? So we can see that here I've targeted our data set or our range to be all this value. Okay, so what if we say a new row or a new column has been added, and that column has data sets which maybe we need to analyze. Yeah, so if a new data set has been added in column G, we can see that, okay, in column G, which is 7, here we haven't targeted this range. Okay, so because of the limitation range, we won't be able to look up or to search for any values which will be here. Okay, so that's the meaning. So coming back to our presentation, we're saying VLOOKUP requires the lookup value to be in the first column of the range. You cannot look for the value in the column that is not first range, is not first column range. So what they are trying to say there is that here we can see that we are saying our target is 2, which is column 2, which is B. So we are looking for the login attempts. So imagine we are looking for the login attempts, and maybe we've specified the column which is 3. Okay, so it means since in column 3 there are these values and not these values, so it will give you these values instead of this. So that's a limitation in range. Okay, so we have another limitation, which no exact match for the sorted data. So basically this happens if you're using the true statement, which is the what we call the approximate match. So what happens if you're using a true is that, remember, data must be in an ascending order. Okay, like 1, 3, 4, 5, this is ascending. Now in a case whereby maybe you have data sets which is maybe 1002, 4 whatsoever, those are not following the ascending order. Okay, they are not in order. So if you're using a true statement, which is the approximate match, it will be difficult for the VLOOKUP to locate that particular data set. Okay, so for you to fix that, you need to put those things in order, in ascending order. Okay, so that can help. So here we can see we are saying when performing an approximate match using true for the range lookup, the data must be sorted in ascending order. If it's not sorted, VLOOKUP may give incorrect results. Okay, so another limitation is performance issues with large data sets. So the example we had is actually small data set. So if it's a huge data set, you realize that in terms of efficiency or the performance, it will take longer for the VLOOKUP to find that particular exact or approximate match, because there are a lot of things there. Okay, Now the last limitation we have here is that returns only one value. What do we mean by this? So imagine in a case whereby this student number is just alone, okay? It's just alone in this case. So these results are true. What if I do this? I also make this student number to be the same student number 2023 1392. So I've made this same student number to appear twice, but having different data sets. Okay, so what can happen if someone searches for 2023 1392, which is that? So you can see that because the VLOOKUP uh, goes from this row to B, which was our target, if you can see 2, which is B, it means that here what we're trying to do in this column, now that it has already searched for the first match, okay, for the first match it has already searched it, which is 1 low allow access, which is this we are seeing. So here what it has done that it has ignored this entry, which is 3 medium and allow access. Why? Because this data set has already been found, so it becomes a limitation because it can only search for one exact match. Okay, if you're having things which are similar, more like of your interest, but to just give you one. So imagine if now I change, okay, let me just put it on default the way it was. Just a minute. So I'm sure, yeah, so I'm sure now there you have an idea, okay, what's happening on that point. So we don't want to waste time. Let me just proceed. So here now we have how to overcome the limitations of VLOOKUP. So the first thing, we have the index. Okay, so index is another thing which can help us. So before we even go further, let's go on our formula bar, and if we type in index, we can say for index, let me just use capital letters. So you can see that for index it needs an array, row, and column number, and so on. So what is the index? So we're saying the index returns a value or reference of the cell of the intersection of particular row and column and gives a range. So here what we are trying to do is that this index thing, though we are not going to do a practical for it for now, it's actually helping us to allow you to look up values in any column and returns values from any other column, even if the columns is not the first column. So we can see that with VLOOKUP it considered the first column, but here it's not the case, and we also have what we call a match. Okay, so we can also use a match to find a particular match you are looking for. Okay, so this 0 you are seeing, actually a 0 and the 1 represents true or false. 1 true, 0 false. So just know that this also covers limitations for a VLOOKUP. So I don't want to make this video longer, so we won't do this particular thing, but in the next video we're going to look at index and match. So another way to overcome the limitation of VLOOKUP is to use a filter. So a filter, again, in Excel 2021 and above, we can actually use what we call a filter. So you can say a filter, it filters a range or an array. So if I say filter, we just need to put an array to include, and if it's empty, you need to specify. Okay, so here again I'm not going to perform this because our interest is for the VLOOKUP. Okay, it's for the VLOOKUP. So these are some of the ways to overcome. So you can see a filter returns all matching values, and for a VLOOKUP it only returned one exact match, regardless if there are many, to just give you one. For filter, you can filter out a lot of matching things such as malicious, and you see all things which are malicious. But for VLOOKUP you are going to see each malicious thing one by one, because it can only target one exact match. Okay, now we come to the if error, which is also involving the VLOOKUP. So this will be demonstrated. Okay, so actually the if error is just there to handle errors gracefully, okay, or accordingly. So let's demonstrate on how this is. So here we have a second lab. So in this second lab, actually, we have things for the ICT Society, which is CTF competition hosted by the ICT Society, and we have the results here. So here we can see we have the prayer with the ID, name, program, CTF points, score, high and low. So the first thing before we go to the VLOOKUP, so as you're analyzing your data, you'd like to figure out the high score, okay? So to do that, we can just put an equal sign, then we say max. So we want to find out the maximum value. So since here we have a range in cell H of all these points, and you can see the maximum is 2000, by the way. So we can see that in H7, you can see that in H7, which is this, all the way to H10, that's where the scores are. So we'll say H10. So we've targeted this cell, which has the score, to find out the maximum value or the max value, which is with this formula. Okay. So once I press enter, automatically we'll find the maximum value. So for the low value, actually is just the opposite, which is mean. So mean for more like not high but just low. Okay, we say mean, not maximum. Now we are getting the mean or the lowest value inside this same H7 to H10 row or column, by the way. So once I press enter, we're going to realize that our lowest score is 150. Now here again we have search for a prayer for a CTF. So here we are going to use this cell to search. Now notice one thing here, our search bar is associated with two cells or merged with two cells. We have cell D and cell C and cell D, which is actually covering these two cells. And in the first example, just to clear it out, we can see that our search cell was just C12. Okay, it was a single one. So when searching for any particular student number, we had no issue to access the results, because here we cannot have an error because of a single cell we are searching. Okay, now in this case we are going to encounter an error if we just consider one cell, because actually these are two cells, though it's written C13 here, but it's accommodating with C and D cell. Okay, so keep that in mind. So here we can see that we have the name. Okay, we have the name. So we want to search for this particular name. So we start our VLOOKUP. So I'll first give the example we gave in the first one, then we're going to see how to use the if error. Okay, so I'll say equal sign VLOOKUP. Okay, tab total complete. Now here our entry is being added here, okay, which is C13, if you are not considering this D13. Okay, so let me just consider, since it's starting at C13, I'll say C13. That's where we are putting our entry to search. Then I'll say comma. So now the table array, everything which is of our target, we need to see which things of our target. So we can see that starting at A7 all the way to H10, that's where our data set is. So say A7, which is the start, all the way to H10, which is actually all this data set you are interested in. Okay, then I'll say comma. Now we come to the column index number or the column number. Remember, we are trying to look for the name. Okay, so we are going to target the column which has the name. So the column which has the name actually is starting at B. B here, all these we can see these are names. So it's column 1, 2. So we put a 2 there, then comma. Now we have to choose an approximate match, which is true, or exact match, which is false. So I'm going to say false because we want to get the exact match. Okay, so once I do that, I'll press enter. Remember, this is just an error indicating that nothing has been searched. Now in the previous example, when maybe we type in the student number, which is 2024 1000, and press enter, we expect to have results which is maybe this, which is saying Podaka which is correct. Okay, now in a case whereby we can see this value which is podaka, and I get this particular thing. Okay, I get this particular thing which you are seeing here, and I copy, then I want to search maybe for the program, then I'll press Ctrl V to paste. So the program actually is starting in cell D, which is these are the programs. So cell D is number 4 by saying 1 2 3 4. Okay, so here we say 4 for the program. So once I press enter, we can see the program has appeared. Okay, now in some situations whereby you have this kind of system which you are trying to implement here, but this search bar is accommodating for two things. Here you can encounter an error, though we haven't encountered it. So but let me just explain on how we use the if else. Okay, so let's assume we've encountered an error. Now it's a shame that we haven't encountered any error. Okay, so what we can do there is that instead of using this thing we saw here and this, actually we are going to do just here to search for the name. We're going to start with if error. Okay, so if error requires us to put the first value. Okay, so the first value will be VLOOKUP. Okay, now inside VLOOKUP we are going to start with our C13, which is the first cell. We say C13, which is our search box, then comma, our table array, remember it was A7 all the way to H10 to target everything in here, and then comma, the column number for the name. As you can see, these are the names, it's B, so we're going to say 2 because B is 2, then comma, and we say false for the exact match. Okay, so once I'm done with that, here we can see we have a comma. Now I'll say comma. Now the next value for the if error, so I'm going to say again VLOOKUP. Now this time around with VLOOKUP, what you are going to do now is that our search lookup value, we are going to target this cell which is D13 because they are actually merged. Okay, I'm going to say D13. Then the rest of the things we just follow the way it is. Our data set is still at A7 to H10, and we are still targeting column 2 for the names and the exact match, which is false. So with this we are done with our if error. We just need to close it. Why? Because here we've opened, so we need to close it somewhere, which is there. Okay, so you can see this VLOOKUP is opening, closing, this opening, closing here with red. Now this white open, white close, like that. So now you can press enter, and now if you type in a student number such as 2025 1601, you're going to see we are going to search for this particular student, which is James Soko. Now that it means that we can fix out the error which we might encounter. Okay, so to complete this, what I can do is to copy this, Ctrl A, Ctrl C, and then in the score I'll paste. Now for the score, remember these are the scores. This is H number 8, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So I'll replace 2 with 8 to target those cells, like that. Then once I press enter, we can see we've obtained our score. So now we have the comment. Okay, for the comment, just a minute. So here I'll paste for the program. So program is starting at D, which is 4, 1 2 3 4. So I'll replace this with a 4. Now you can see it's looking simple because you are just replacing. Okay, so once I press enter, it will give me the program. Then we come to the comment. So the comment, let's just use the if statement to say if. Okay, so I'm going to say if we are given a condition. So I'm going to say if this score, okay, this score you've obtained, this score you've obtained is equal to this value which is high, it means you are the winner. And if it's equal to this score which is low, it means you are the loser. or you've lost. Okay, so you can see that in I, then all the way to 7, you can see that in I7, which is this, is the high score, meaning this is the winner. So say if I7, okay, by the way, let me not target I7 for now. So I'm saying if this value, which is B17, so we're saying if B17, which is this value, is equal to this value, which we saw as I7, is equal to this value. What do we say? We put a comma and our statement in double quotations to say winner. So why are we doing this? We are simply saying that if this score is equal to this value, actually you are the winner, okay? Because you are the highest, or you got the high score. So I'll say comma. Now here we say if, okay, another if statement. So now I'm going to say if B17, which is the score you've obtained, okay, if B17, the score you've obtained, is less than, okay, is less than the high score, is less than this high score, which is I7, that simply means it's telling us that you are the loser, okay, you've lost, because actually if this score is less than their score, it means that you are the loser. So this is just a conditional if statement. So I'm going to close it. So remember, we opened it at first with the white open bracket. So I'd like to close that as well. Then press enter. So you can see that Soko James is the loser because he didn't manage to hit that high score, which is this. Okay, now if I search for another who was supposed to be the winner, this student Beatrice Mwape. Okay, so if I search for the student number for Beatrice Mwape 2025 8895 and press enter, it will show me all this data about this player, CTF player for the ICT society, to say Beatrice Mwape as actually from data science scored 2000, then she's the winner. Okay, so with this we can see that we are able to handle errors, though I haven't demonstrated it well, which is unfortunate, but that's the meaning for if error and VS lookup combined. Okay, so in conclusion, you can see that in data analysis, a VLOOKUP can help us to make, number one, we can say maybe informed decisions, because with these statistics we are getting after searching, we are able to make informed decisions. Like in the first example, we saw that we could make a decision either to allow, suspend, or block that particular account based on the things we managed to get. Okay, and another thing can maybe to say a VLOOKUP in data analysis can not just help us in maybe making informed decisions, okay, but can help us maybe to identify patterns, what changes are there in a particular thing which you are looking at, okay, the trends, how is it, and so on. So without wasting much of our time, tomorrow is a Friday, just like Mr. Mkombo says, Friday we don't touch it, okay. So equal sign text join. Now this text join is another thing whereby we can try to join a particular result with another result and to get more meaning about it. So unlike VLOOKUP, which cannot do that, now we can overcome this particular limitation with the text join function. So here I won't explain it because there will be a separate video for index, match, filter, and text join, and XLOOKUP, by the way. So this formula will return all matching values from column C if that was our target column, where column B matches A1 separated by commas. So it's more like we've joined the results and separate them with commas. So now we reach to the end of our slide. So this was the ICT Society slide Excel slides prepared by Soko James. So by the way, my name is Soko James, representing KMU Cybersecurity Tutorials, ICT Society, and in this case, third year cybersecurity students in fraud detection and technologies CYS 339. So CYS 339, that's the course. So thanks for watching, and thanks to Mr. Mkombo for giving me this opportunity to look at these particular things. So in case you want to learn on how I came up with those stuffs for the CTF, this is the documentation showing each and every step which I made for me to reach at that particular stage. So with that being said, all these files will be shared on a link, and the link will be posted on the description, and you'll be able to access them so that you can practice these things. So see you when you start looking at the index, XLOOKUP, filter, match, and text join. Okay, so see you in the next video.